Ever tried reading while jogging, cooking, or even juggling flaming torches? Yeah, it doesn't end well. But with audiobooks.com, you can conquer books without the circus act. Dive into over 450,000 titles, including more than 10,000 free ones. Get hooked on a bestseller, find your next obsession, or finally read that classic you've been avoiding since high school. And here's the inside scoop. Sign up today for a free 30-day trial and snag your first 3 audiobooks on the house. Sign up for your free trial at audiobooks.com/podcastfree today. That's audiobooks.com/podcastfree.
Now Podcast One brings you Spike's Car Radio, a downloadable cars and coffee, hosted by writer, comedian, and automotive enthusiast Spike Ferriston. Now, here's Spike.
What's with this using the medicine?
What's that?
Weed. Everybody's smoking. Everyone's taking their medicine.
Calm down, Zuckerman. Calm down. We haven't even started the show, and you're crazy here. You're out of control. It's going to be a good one this week on Spike's Car Radio. You can leave all that in, Will. It's a nice soft start. Zuckerman, I don't know. You're in the same mood that I am today.
Up and down.
Up and down. Well, I should first mention that we've got Alonzo Bodden on the show. I think that's how you pronounce his name, right? Alonzo Bodden. He's a stand-up comedian, car guy, motorcycle guy. He's going to be a really fun interview. We're going to get to him in a second. But on the way here, no lie, I was almost hit 4 times. 4 times. I had almost an emergency, like getting my Range Rover Sport out of the way because of idiot drivers. And I can tell the same thing probably happened to you. You're upset about people on the road.
All the time.
It's getting crazy here.
Here's the thing. So when I come over here...
would you just agree with that statement?
Yes.
L.A. is getting worse by the day with the distracted driving?
By the distracted driving, poor drivers, people with limitations, people... Okay, Uber guys that shouldn't be Uber guys.
Uber,
Uber,
the Lyft drivers are the worst of them.
Okay, I have a little thing about these companies. So if you're going to be an Uber driver, you have to use a navigation device to go along with what you're doing. You click over to either Waze or Maps or something like that, and those devices don't necessarily take you the safest way. So you might be on a side street trying to cross all 7 lanes of Olympic because that's what Maps told you.
This isn't here's what I'm noticing, and this is not meant to denigrate any of you Uber and Lyft drivers, but a lot of you don't know how to drive.
That's right.
You're not finding work, so they go, well, I'll just drive, but you're not drivers.
You are not a chauffeur. You are not a livery driver.
And this isn't everybody. I don't want to generalize. I never like to stereotype.
I do.
But I'm noticing a lot of really slow driving in the left lane, a lot of really dangerous entries onto the road. Whenever I see something nuts now, half the time I look and there's that little Uber or Lyft thing in the window.
And I'll tell you what the factors are. The factors are A, you're not a good driver to begin with. B, you don't know where the hell you are. And C, you're looking at your navigation device.
Right.
And D, you don't have any common sense, which means I'm gonna stop and allow people to get into and out of my vehicle in the most dangerous place.
Yes.
Here's a pet peeve of mine. All right, because I came over here on small.
This is good. I like this. Let's start putting together driving driver pet peeves.
Here's another one. Opening the door all the way into the roadway and then not getting out of the car because you have to text or you have to do something else. And I really wish one day I'm going to get an old Ram Charger or Bronco, and I'm just going to drive and take doors. So you're not learning your lesson. I'm just going to take your freaking door off.
It's amazing that people still do that. That's one of the old ones, right? You don't open your door into traffic or you're going to lose your door. I had the pleasure recently of watching that happen right in front of me. It's exactly what you said. It was a Prius. They opened the door into traffic on the street where I live, and the person just sat there, and a gardener came up the street or a construction worker in his truck, his Ford F-150, and blasted that door into the heavens.
I will pay for the damages because that makes me so happy.
And then I went by the person and looked at them, and they were just stunned. Like, I can't believe this happened, that I opened the door into traffic and someone knocked my door off. And when they, how much of that car was destroyed? It's not just your door. It's the door frame. It's the front left fender. The whole thing was destroyed, and the door flew off. It was beautiful. The glass windshield was gone.
Oh, God. The best part of my day right now was hearing that story. Here's another thing that bugs me. Okay.
Yes. And then I want to get into what you do that bugs other people.
Okay.
I think
I do lots of things.
But let's talk about other people. It's
what
safer,
about
right?
what about you got to smoke your medicine, right? I thought smoking your medicine. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, medical marijuana, right?
right.
I get on the road and that's all I can smell. How the hell, with the weed as strong as it is these days, are people smoking and driving?
Yeah, because a lot of it's getting vaped. And I think people feel comfortable doing it now because they'll think the cops are going to think they're vaping tobacco, right? I know, you and I have a friend. We have a friend who's a car person who loves to vape and has vaped around us. And you're never quite sure what he's putting in his little vaporizer, right? But frequently he says, yeah, there's weed in there every once in a while, and who's going to know? So imagine the police officer. How do they know what these guys are on?
They don't know what anyone's on, and they can't.
And that's when people are driving around like that. The other thing we have is the distracted driving with the iPhone, the phone right on the lap. Or have you seen this one? You and I were talking about this one the other day. I called you up and you answered this question, which I appreciated. Why am I seeing so many women take their phone and holding it flat in front of their mouth?
And
like,
it's funny because I used to think that was
what is that?
I used to think that was an affectation. Like, look how fancy I am.
No, I thought the women of L.A. thought this was hands free. And I always said when I would see them, I go, "That's one hand."
And I asked somebody that because I looked at that and I said, "Look at her." It kind of made me angry.
Right? And then somebody said, why are there so many of do it? But you had the perfectly logical explanation.
Makeup.
Of
They
it.
don't want to get makeup on the phone.
Right.
War
if you've
paint.
ever looked at your wife's or girlfriend's phone, you know how it's got the gooey, jelly all over it. That's what they've learned is they put it in front of their mouth like this, and they don't do that.
The stuff they're spackling their faces with.
Well, I was impressed. I was like, well, that's good. Well, occasionally I have to wear makeup. Maybe I'm going to do that.
Spackle your face.
I don't know why they don't just use their Bluetooth, right? Explain this one to me, Zuckerman, because this happens to me a lot, where someone cuts me off, and I will notify them with my horn, with just a little toot, just like a pop pop, like, hey, you didn't see me, but I want to make sure that you know I'm here, and then they flip me off.
Right, because for you,
and then I get a little angry about that.
Because how dare you say something to me? Don't you know who I am? It's the "don't you know who I am" syndrome. Right. You can't beep at me. Now I can beep at everyone else. It's my joke about when I get on the road. I am the chief of police. I write all the rules, I enforce all the rules, and I break all the rules. But I can do that. You can't do that.
Right. But you and I kind of do that in real life. We're that guy, right? I would imagine there are many people in Los Angeles that have complained about the two of us and our driving, especially that Malibu drive we do, which sometimes, depending on the wheels we're in, like you don't want to be anywhere near us when we're in GT3s.
Well, you remember the time I was in a Carrera GT and the doctor had given me some steroids and I was roid man, and some poor guy cut me off, and I wanted to run him off the road with my Carrera GT.
But what are the? I mean, why do we? And we all do this. We have these moments where you feel so attacked, and suddenly you're out of your car and you're yelling at somebody. And you're like, why is this such a? Why do we get so angry in cars? Like, what is going on with the psychology there?
Reason, and you can go into other cultures. Like you go to Italy, where people drive like animals.
They do,
and they never get out of the car. They never try to kill each other.
Well, they fly around beeping their horn constantly, no, and and just run right at you and run right by you.
They understand that's the culture. But here, I think we're also stressed out. And then when we get into our cars, which is like a suit of armor. And we feel safe and we feel in our own universe. I've noticed more women give the finger than men do.
Yeah, that's true.
And I say to myself, they must really feel protected, where they feel safe to respond in a way they would not do in person.
I was flipped off by a teenage girl this weekend. On the PCH.
Should have cracked the finger off and thrown it into the ocean.
I just wonder what she was thinking. It's just like here in LA, I'm not flipping anybody off because I don't know who has the gun. You know, it happens. It's too often. It happens here, and you know what I mean. So why would this wayfish young woman decide to flip off me? And I'm a tough looking dude.
You are. You scare everybody.
I'm a kind of scary guy when I don't have my glasses on.
I'm driving the 71, the leaf green 71, and I realize because the car has limitations, I'm a nicer driver and I'm in a better mood.
Right.
When I'm in, say, that Turbo S or an aggressive, it's black, it's fast, or an aggressive RS, I'm a more aggressive driver and I'm an angrier driver.
That I've noticed is like, when you get in an old Mercedes diesel,
right,
like something like that, it takes you right out of the game, and it can be.
Right. You are a man among men. You're right size.
Right. Yeah, right size. Exactly. The Volkswagen Beetle does that too. The old Volkswagen Beetles. Right. You jump in those. I can't compete. My old Land Rover does that. I can't even get up to traffic speed. So you guys play
just
today.
Do your thing. Yeah, I'm out of the game.
I'm out of the game. I'm not ultimate fighting on the road.
Right. there should be stickers on the car. I'm in the senior division of fighting.
Right. Well, yeah.
Here's another thing I hate.
How do
cigarette butts out the window.
Yeah, I don't like any of that stuff. It makes me crazy when I see people litter. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's just a basic courtesy thing.
Why is it not okay in your car, but okay in the rest of the world?
Right. I'm going to pollute my lungs.
Yes.
But well, I don't even know where I'm going with that. So how do we calm down, Zuckerman? What are your tips for calming down on the road? One here, I heard a great one. It's kind of Jay Leno's motorcycle rule, which I will adopt to cars, which is he never gets on a motorcycle when he's late.
Right.
Because that's a recipe for death. Right?
Right, absolutely.
But I find more often than not, if I throw myself in a car to get to an appointment early, I'm not freaking out, right? I'm not racing and raging, right?
Absolutely, that's a good one. But the problem
is...
And
have you ever read the articles that say you got to tell yourself, we all share the road together. We're sharing. This is not your road. Because when you're in your car, you think, this is my drive, this is my road, and everybody better get out of my way, right?
Cars, it does bring out the worst in me. I'm slightly on the aggressive side naturally to begin with. I run a little hot.
It helps you in law,
right? In many ways, it's what my talents are also my trouble,
right?
So, yes, what makes me successful in law does not make me successful sharing the road with you.
Your stories are so wonderful. I like it. I mean, I don't want you to calm down because
I want to calm down.
There's nothing I love more than our Fridays Chiccone's lunch that we have in West Hollywood with Johnny and you, and when we all tell our stories, and those are some of the best stories. I love those.
I know, but those are, I know, but usually they come.
But then there's the shame,
right? They come at the expense of shame,
right?
Because you do feel ashamed of yourself after you've gotten out of the car, and I'm out of the car, and I'm 53, and this guy's 58,
right?
And we're going to clobber each other, and it's just so
That's
embarrassing.
So funny.
It's so
How quick does the shame come for you? Usually, the shame, like
instantly.
if I have flipped off an old lady or something. I'm not saying I have, but maybe I have.
I never feel justified.
It's not until I get home where I go, oh, did I just do that?
Yeah, I don't feel justified for very long. I don't. I feel shame. I feel shame quickly. And
then the added difficulty of doing it with your kids in the car.
Oh,
you really have to. You're trying to demonstrate good dad skills and driving skills, but I can only keep that together for 5 minutes.
My son was in a car seat once, and I had to follow somebody. And when he got out of his car, I got out and I said to him, "You drive like that again, and I'll strangle you." With a kid in a car seat.
That's excellent.
It's embarrassing. No, it's embarrassing.
It is.
What's wrong with me?
Well, look, we're talking about it. We're talking about it because we want to be better. We want to be better on the road.
We're having group therapy with everybody who's listening. Send us your stories.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Send us stories of your most shameful moment upon the road.
I'm going to post that on Instagram, and we will definitely read some of those. I've thought about doing that show, your best road rage stories. And if you're listening, sure, send them in. I'll post something on my Instagram that says Spike's Car Radio. You'll see it there, and yeah.
Share your shame.
Share your shame. All right. Well, Alonzo Bodden's on the show, and we're going to go to him right now. Zuckerman, I know you're saying goodbye. I know you got to get back to work and make
money.
The money.
I need to buy more cars.
And as Zuckerman leaves, Alonzo is here. Sir, very nice to meet you.
Hello.
This is the first time I've ever met you.
I know.
I've seen you in a lot of places. I've wondered about you. What I like about you is you're a comedian, but you're also a gearhead.
Very much so.
Yeah, very much so. So you're in that little category, that sweet spot for our show here on Spike's Car Radio, because that's me. That's your buddy Leno. That's Seinfeld. That's all, we all like comedy. We like cars. And you like motorcycles.
I love motorcycles.
And I'm a motorcycle guy.
Oh, very cool. Very
cool.
So,
but first, in case you don't know him, we have to go where? Back to 2003 to know that you were the winner of
I think it was
Last Comic?
I think it was 05.
Standing. 05.
Yeah, but
So maybe that's when you placed.
That was the, I did season 2, came in second, and then fortunately they had a season 3. So I came back and won, but they canceled the final episode. So I go down in history as the unknown winner of Last Comic Standing.
Now, the thing about that show, I make shows like this now, and I kind of see how they work from the inside out. But my sense of that show, without knowing too much about it, was that these were already established comedians.
Oh, yeah.
Right, competing, right? You're already pretty big on the scene. You're already doing your thing. Mm-hmm. And now they're going to pretend to discover you, right?
Well,
is that... Am I wrong? Go ahead.
No, you weren't. You're not wrong. What more? It was like we were established club comedians. Kathleen Madigan, who was on the season I was on, she was probably the biggest name. Kathleen had been around. She'd done Tonight shows, and she'd had one 1-hour special at that time. But the rest of us, we were ready for that show. We were touring clubs. We'd done the occasional. I think at that point I had done Conan's late night show in New York, and so we had done a couple of things here and there, but nobody was known. So once
you win, what are you winning then? What's the incentive aside from?
You know what it is? It was being on TV. It was being on because the show was
and that's back when people were watching TV.
Right, exactly. It was
not like now where there's no TV.
Time, and we had TV. The thing we didn't have was social media.
Right.
Okay, we had MySpace.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember that.
Last Comic got me thousands of MySpace followers, which hasn't exactly done much. But
10-year-olds from across the world.
Yeah. That was the thing. It was being on TV, so people recognize your name. And for the first year after the show, it was crazy. It was like, oh, this is what it's like to be a star.
Oh, wow.
Like a friend of mine who opened for me, he said, I can always tell when you've been on TV by how many cars are in the parking lot. He's like, the lot's full. Yeah, he's been working. If the lot's not too full, he's like, things are a little slow.
It really does help on the road, right? This
Absolutely.
Exposure, especially television exposure, to sell tickets.
Yeah.
And you tour a lot right now?
All the time.
Yeah, Where can we catch up with you? So you're going to be on. We're recording in the early December here, so you're up in maybe 3 weeks, right? Right. Will, where are we airing this show right now? Right before Christmas? Just before Christmas?
Yeah.
Just before Christmas.
Well, Christmas week I'll be around L.A. The Laugh Factory in Hollywood's kind of my home club, and then the first weekend of January I'll be in New York. I'll be at Gotham's Comedy Club.
Oh, great! It's a great club.
So that'll be fun. But I'm always traveling.
Did you grow up here in L.A.?
No, I grew up in New York. I grew up in
New
Queens.
York. So how is it that you're a gearhead? Like, where does that start in New York? Because most guys I know from New York don't even have driver's licenses.
I think I was destined for L.A. My first love was motorcycles. Before cars, it was motorcycles. And that came from my grandmother had a farm in South Carolina, and there was a family that rented land, and the son had a bike. And all I could remember about the bike is it had to be a British twin. It was either a BSA or a Triumph, something like that, because this was in late 60s. And he took us for rides up and down this dirt road on the farm. And I loved it. And I fell in love with bikes. And so I started reading the magazines, right, because that's your only connection. And then cars, it was a thing, just something, gearheads are born, right? There's something in you that you like that sound or you like the idea of horsepower. So...
Well, for me, it was a way to drive away from my family. That's what I like. But the early thing was a motorcycle thing for me. Like it was going down to Betancourt Honda in West Bridgewater, Massachusetts, and just staring at these two-wheel things for sale.
I used to do that all the time.
My mom's at the time was an emergency room nurse, and she would just come home and go, "You're never." She would just say out of the blue, "You're never having a motorcycle."
Yeah, emergency room.
It's never happens. And every weekend we go out there and we got to find a way onto one of these things. We didn't have any money, so we never got one. But I had this super cool uncle, still do, Uncle Tim, He's a professional photographer, and he had a Hodaka Combat Wombat 2-stroke Jap bike. And he goes, look, I'm going to give this to you, but I'm going to tell your dad that you need to store it in the garage, and I have no place to store it, but it's really yours. Just don't tell him it's yours. I'm also going to tell him you need to ride it once a week to keep it going. And that became my first bike and first obsession. And those things are, they're horrible. They foul plugs all the time. If you Google Hodaka Combat Wombat and look at this beautiful old dirt bike with a stainless steel tank.
Yeah,
and
well now, I mean, that's a whole world now, those vintage dirt bikes and stuff like that.
I had back then it was
people are collecting those. Like now somebody would grab a Hodaka.
Yeah, I would grab one.
Yeah.
In a sad attempt to buy back my youth. But I do remember it was really heavy, and it never really worked right. Like, there are much better choices for off-road bikes, but that motorcycle thing after that moment was it's just that I tell people sometimes privately I'm more of a motorcycle guy than a car guy, because that aloneness on the road or out in the woods is something I just love.
Yeah, I tell people it's being alone in my helmet.
Right.
It's just it's a meditative place. And I'll tell you, my recapture of youth, I bought a Honda Grom.
Oh, yeah.
Because when I was a kid, my dad would never let me have a mini bike. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, I can have one now.
Yeah.
So I love my Grom.
And how do you use that?
I run around the neighborhood on it. And we also, on occasion, there's a group called M1GP, a friend of mine named Young Lee. Yes, I'm doing a plug. And he has this mini bike racing series, right? They race little 50cc dirt bikes that they put street tires on and stuff. And he teaches kids to ride, but you also have adults we go to a go-kart track like at Willow Springs. And you have grown-ups on little tiny bikes racing on a go-kart track, having a ball. It's like you're doing 30 miles an hour and you're fighting for a corner. It's
and you
really
do that?
fun.
You're a big guy, right? What are you, 6'4" or something?
Yeah, 6'3". And and I'm not the biggest guy on the Grom. There's a bunch of us, we get out there and have a ball. Yeah.
So what was your first motorcycle? Was that what you bought first?
CB400F, the Honda 404.
Wow.
Old 4-cylinder Honda with the cool exhaust pipes.
Yeah, that's a great bike.
Yeah,
and how old were you when you got that bike?
I was 18.
You were 18.
I got a bike. I moved here. I went to aviation high school in New York and learned to fix planes. It's a high school where you learn to trade. So I got licensed to fix airplanes.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then I was hired by Lockheed, which used to be in Burbank. So I moved to L.A., and I was one of those people that bought a bike before I bought a car. Yeah. So my first vehicle was the 400. Yeah.
Well, when I turned 18, I bought a motorcycle. That's what I bought. And when I went to school in Boston, I had a Ninja ZX600R. And I remember getting on it in that first ride and just flying down the road and looking down and seeing I was going 80 miles an hour. And I was like, I can't believe this. Yeah. It feels like I'm going 20.
Well, I tell people, like, back in those days, I'm talking early 80s. I said, yeah. This is how you learn. They gave you the key. They said, this is how you shift. These are the brakes. And if you make it home alive, you should be okay. Right? Like now they have the MSF riding courses and rider training for new people. And I recommend it to anyone who wants to start riding. But I was like, oh, yeah, back in our day.
Yeah, that's right.
You learned by doing.
You're exactly right. I went down there and I wrote a check with my lawn mowing money or whatever I was doing. I think it was bartending at that point. And I just said, yeah, give me that. They gave me a helmet and I just rode off. I went to school on it. I was lucky enough to be around one of my good friends' family. They were motocrossers. And, every once in a while he would let me ride his bike out in the woods because we lived in the suburbs, so you'd go out in the woods in them. And he was very good at communicating, just this is how you're going to die tips. Mm-hmm. Leno, who was just here recently, had one of the better ones too. But Jeff's was his nickname was Scuzz. Actually, Scuzz's was you're going to die in an intersection, so that's where you want your eyes and ears open on a bike, right? Leno was saying he never gets on a bike if he's late. That's his rule because if he's late, he might make a mistake, right? Do you have any?
They told
tips?
me the front brake.
What do you mean?
They told me learn to use the front brake. They said the front brake's going to stop you. Right? Because when you're come from bicycles, whatever. You're like, oh, don't hit the front brake. You go over the handlebars and
right.
that, whatever. And I don't even remember who it was, but it was someone who rode who said, nah, this is a motorcycle. They don't flip over. The front brake's going to stop you. It's going to save your life.
Right.
And, so I learned. And then when you go on sport bikes, it's really funny. On sport bikes, you almost don't use the rear brake. Like the front brakes are so powerful and you're so used to using them that when I started riding on cruisers and big touring bikes and stuff, I was like, oh, you got to use all the brake. Like, this thing's heavy. Like, you can't use just the front. You got to use front and rear. But, yeah, the front brake. And the other thing, and it's funny, I was just reading an article in a magazine, and this guy mentioned it. They said, ride like everyone's out to kill you. Like, just,
right.
You just have that awareness, right? Like here, just coming here, I was coming over Coldwater Canyon, and this guy, it's a line of traffic.
By the way, my co-host has to leave. We started our show we started this show with these stories. We were both talking about how we were almost hit. I was almost hit 4 times on the way here.
Yeah.
He had his little interaction. Now you're walking in and you're telling us the same thing.
Yeah, so traffic is all stopped.
Yep.
And this guy in a pickup truck just decided, I'll just turn right. And so I just did one of those
You're on your bike right now.
Yeah. So I just did one of those loops around him as he started to turn. And I'm sure, I didn't see his face, but I'm sure his eyes just exploded because they're looking right at you on a bike, but they don't see you.
Right.
They're looking through you. And then if you move or something, then they're like, he came out of nowhere. It's like, nope, I do not have magical powers. I was here the whole time.
Do you get caught up in the road rage thing at all? We were talking about it earlier in the show and how we all struggle with it.
Yeah, you can't live in L.A. and not get caught up in road rage. And I think more so, on a bike, I don't get as mad because I have maneuverability and I expect the worst.
Right.
But the thing on a bike, you get to see what people are doing in cars.
Yes.
And it's so funny when they say, don't text and drive. It's like, I would be so happy if they were only texting. Right. I've seen iPads on the steering wheel while they're watching a movie. I've seen newspapers open. Like
I
fully
once,
opened, like, I'll just read the news.
I once saw a woman with a cigarette out the window and a salad in the right hand driving.
Yeah, it's not just eating a burger or a sandwich. No, I have a
salad
plate and a fork. Yeah, and you're just like, this is amazing.
Then don't you think maybe you shouldn't be on the road on a motorcycle then with all this going on? Because it's like we're not going to change that. It is getting much worse here. I think a big part of the problem is enforcement, and there isn't enough money for police officers out there to add more of them to stop this stuff, so everybody feels like we can, you can do whatever you want, run whatever stop sign you want, right?
Yeah, but I couldn't imagine not riding. Like, I tell everyone, riding a motorcycle in L.A. is playing the biggest game of Frogger in the world. You're playing Frogger all the time, but at the same time, like, can you imagine? Now, I live in Studio City, right? You're here, Beverly Hills adjacent.
Yep.
So 10 miles apart in distance.
Mm-hmm.
By car, an hour.
Yeah.
On my bike, 20 minutes.
20 minutes. How many brushes with death every drive?
Just one.
One or two, right?
But but that's the difference. Like, when you talk about road rage, when you're sitting in that car and it just stops. And the funny thing about L.A., because I travel everywhere, and traffic, me and another friend are the two who agree that New York is as bad as L.A., even though they say LA is
it's bad. It's worse than it's ever been.
But the thing about L.A. is you never know when it's going to happen. Like, I'm on my way over here, it's noon, and traffic just stops. You're like, shouldn't you people be at work?
Right.
Shouldn't you be doing something?
Everybody's going to lunch. There's a midday traffic jam every day now because everybody's driving to lunch.
There isn't any specific rush hour. At any given time, a freeway may stop. And I was talking to a traffic engineer one time, and he was showing me this, how, like, 3 cars can stop the 405.
Really?
Because they slow down, right? And then people try to go around them. Now, when you're going around, when you cut into a lane, that lane slows down.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's how it builds. And he said, he said, imagine dropping like a stone into a stream. Now the water has to go around the stream. Well, the water going around the stone is holding up the flow of all the water, and he said, and that's how traffic jams build. He said it only takes a couple of people, and you've seen it. You've seen the people, like, they'll bump into each other on the freeway and then get out of the car on the freeway. And
right.
Like, what the hell is wrong with you? But
they've never been in an accident. That's another good one. Will, we didn't talk about that one. That's another one. You get in an accident and you just freeze, as if we need to have this evidence, this photograph of this is how it happened for this $200 accident that the insurance company is going to settle in one email.
Yeah.
Right. You just get to the side of the road safely and get out of traffic. That's what you're supposed to do. And, here's another one that we didn't get to talk about. People dicking around in the left lane when you're on two lanes and they're just driving slowly. You got to stay to the right. The left lane is for passing and speeding. It's not up to you how fast people drive. The law says stay to the right. And if you see lights behind you in a GT3, that's me telling you you're driving too slow in that lane. I'm back to flashing people and turning the lights on.
Yeah.
I've had it.
I
have absolutely had it.
They seem to respect more on the East Coast.
They do, and in European nations, they all know
they
that.
Absolutely get it.
What ends up happening now is the passing lane, at least on the PCH, but on the highways out here too, the passing lane is the right lane now.
Yeah,
everybody's passing on the right.
There's no passing lane. People, but the other thing is, I don't know what they teach when people learn to drive. I don't think people learn that.
No.
I don't think people learn to, that the left lane is the, quote, fast lane.
No,
or state.
They're not keeping track of it.
I don't think anyone's learning that. And, they'll get in the left lane. And the other thing is, well, like we talked about distracted driving, and also people are just, like, rude. Like, yeah, it's my world. I'm going to drive the way I want to, and you work around me.
Right, exactly. Or they're checked out. But I think we all do that. I think we all have our days that we do that.
I miss my Hummer. I had an H2, and say what you want about it.
Nobody messes with it.
It's an intimidating vehicle.
Yes, it is. I'm assuming there are big guns in that one.
Nothing more fun than putting a Hummer grill into someone's rearview mirror, because it takes up the whole, and they're like, get out the way. So,
all right, we're talking to Alonzo Bodden. We'll be right back with more Spike's Car Radio. Let's talk about AMSOIL. You know why I like AMSOIL? Because they're a bunch of car people. They're gearheads. They're into all kinds of power sports, and basically they get it. Recently, AMSOIL created the guide to increasing horsepower in your vehicle. It has insider tips from some of the best in the business on coaxing more power out of your engine. And who doesn't want that? You can get your copy free at amsoil.com/spike. That's my last name, amsoil.com/spike. While there, find out more about AMSOIL synthetic motor oil too, like how AMSOIL Signature Series synthetic motor oil delivers 75% more engine protection against horsepower loss and wear than required by a leading industry standard. Go to amsoil.com/spike to get your free insider's guide to increasing horsepower.
Hey, it's Adam Carolla. Now, if you're hearing my voice, it means you like podcasting. And if you like podcasting, well, then you're going to love my show. Lots of funny segments, good bits, great guests, and, of course, moi. That's Mexican for me. So, check it out at Podcast One, iTunes, or wherever you listen to fine podcasts. The Adam Carolla Show. Throw it in your phone. It's free.
You're listening to Spike's Car Radio.
All right, we're back on Spike's Car Radio with Alonzo Bodden. Very funny stand-up comedian, and also a motorcycle dude and a car dude. The Hummer. What's it? You collect cars right now? Do you have more motorcycles?
I have more motorcycles. I don't have room to collect cars.
Right.
The cars take up a lot more space and a lot more money.
They do. And so what do you have? So your primary mode of transport?
My primary car is a Mercedes GLE 450.
Okay.
And I just picked up a 996 Turbo.
Oh, Porsche?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I love Porsche.
Well, that's good. I've been getting a lot of questions about the 996s, and people are wondering whether they should buy them or not. What do you say to that?
I say yes. I mean, it is not the greatest car, although, and I was doing a lot of research on it before I got it, they said the turbo is a lot better than the 996 because the turbo had a different engine. Mm-hmm. So the turbo never had that problem with the main bearing.
The IMS.
The IMS bearing problem. So
the much debated and the hotly debated IMS.
It's what the IMS.
So the turbo doesn't have that issue.
No, turbo doesn't have that issue.
Okay.
Because the turbo kept the engine from they basically water cooled the race engines from the
Metzger engine?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The IMS issue, people say either it happens or it doesn't.
Right.
But most of those cars have been fixed by now. I think if you can get a great deal on a 996 and you want a driver, then go ahead and get it. I don't know that 996s are ever going to be collectable. The
GT. I had a 996 GT3 that I loved.
A GT3
held my
is
attention.
different.
Yeah,
a GT3 is different. But I mean, just if you just have a regular 996, 996S, but it's a great car.
And what is your turbo? What color is it?
It's blue, which is an unusual color. Yeah, it's blue. The guy who I got it from, who had it, and it's funny you mentioned Leno. One of the better pieces of advice Jay gave me, he said, if you're going to buy an old car, buy it from somebody rich. They take care of their stuff. So I found this one. at Scottsdale Ferrari. The guy had traded it in and got a Ferrari. It had really low miles. He had put the bigger turbos on it, put coilovers on it. It's in pristine condition, and it's like, yeah, he's a rich guy. He has a few, he's got a number of cars, takes care of them all, and they sit in his collection, and he traded one, and I got it. So I think it's a great car. I don't know if it'll ever be a collector car.
What does it matter?
But they're fun to drive. There's nothing like driving a 911. I think it's the greatest driver's car.
Yeah. As far as collector cars, I mean, just as a basic rule of thumb, everyone, that a collector car is a car, they don't make a lot of them. So, when you ask about these cars where they made, 10,000 or over 5,000 or even in some cases over 3,000, they're not really collectible if everybody can get them. What gets stuff collectible is this low number of examples and a competition, a global interest in them trying to get those examples. And that supply and demand, it's simple supply and demand. And then what you're talking about is there a car that my money is safe in? Is there a healthy market for a 996, right? Is there a healthy market for these cars? And that's, I don't know about you, but I always go first and foremost, I'll run right to eBay Motors and go, okay, GT3 RSs, the 991 new variant of the GT3 RS, are they collectible right now, and where are they trending? Well, look. There's 7 pages of them on eBay Motors, and they start here and they end here, and most of them have no bids. That should give you a good idea of where the market is on the cars, right?
That's still a car to buy, to drive. And the 996s, I think they bottomed out. I don't think they're going to get any lower.
No one was ever interested in this car because the previous incarnation variant was the 993, the last air-cooled Porsche, and there was a lot of, consternation. There was a lot of controversy about this water-cooled Porsche when it came along, right?
Oh, a friend of mine, he was my mechanic and passed away recently, but he's old school Porsche guy, right? And he called the water cooled car. He's like, "Oh, those are luxury cars."
Right.
If it wasn't air cooled to him,
right.
It's like, yeah, those are. But even looking at that, even looking at the air cooled Porsches, right? Because I had a couple. I had a 78 SC and an 88 930, which I'd kill to have back. But nobody knew. Like when I sold mine for 30-something thousand, right? Nobody knew it was going to be worth $80,000. Like nobody knew the air-cooled cars. The air-cooled cars jumped up in like a 3 or 4 year period. They doubled, tripled in value. Nobody saw that coming because if you had a 1980s Porsche in the early 2000s, you just had an old car.
Right.
You didn't have anything super collectible or special or whatever, right? And then suddenly it became like, whoa, we want the air-cooled one. And like you said, the 993, I mean, I know a guy who had a 993 turbo. He had a 96. That car is like a $200,000 car now, But when he traded it in on a newer model.
Seinfeld had a Turbo S turquoise, a famous car on the internet, and he goes, "I'm getting rid of this. If you want it, here, take it for a week and drive it." I remember getting in this turquoise 993 Turbo S is worth a lot of money right now. Bringing it home, showed it to my wife, and she looked at it. She goes, "I love this color." She never liked stuff. I said, "Yeah, I don't know. It used to be new, but it's not new anymore. I don't know if I'm interested." She goes, "This is Jerry's car, you could probably get a good deal." And I'm like, yeah, boy, a huge regret. But like you say, like as we sit here right now looking forward into time, everything is dark. You don't know where this market's going right now.
You don't know.
Right?
You just get something and get what you like. And the people, God bless you. Look, if you got the money and the space to just buy cars and sit on them and hope they'll be worth something in the future. And there's a lot of people
but
who are
why
like that,
don't?
right?
But that's not what you want to do.
So God bless you, but
you're a driver. You and I are drivers, right? And I'm happiest in a car that I love to drive. I love the way it feels. I love to put it in gear, move it down the road, and whether it goes up or down, I don't quite care about.
And it's probably going to go down.
No, and that's not true. A lot of stuff I buy goes up, but still, it doesn't make me any happier. The financial part of it doesn't deliver happiness on a Saturday afternoon, right?
Right. Well, that's what I mean. I mean, if you get into cars thinking I'm going to make investments and I'm going to make a killing,
that's trouble.
Like you won't.
No,
so
that's
trouble. You better enjoy the car,
right.
Whether you enjoy looking at it or the feel of it, or like we were talking about earlier, nostalgic, like it brings you back to a time in your life, right? Or a point like you had one. Maybe you had one of these, or it's the car you always dreamed of when you were a teenager or something like that, then go ahead and get it, man, and have fun. But, yeah, if you're trying to figure out, if you're like, I don't really like this car, but it's going to be worth some money in 10 years, it's like, it probably won't.
The only guys cleaning up there, Leno, Seinfeld, any of these other bigger collections that they've been buying for a while. If you got the money to
collect like that, then then odds are you're going to have some stuff worth some money. And even collectors, most of them don't. I don't know Jerry Seinfeld, but Jay, most of them don't match Jay in the fact that he knows everything in his garage.
He's amazing,
isn't he? He drives it all. He has fun. Like a friend of mine and I were just talking about this the other day. Jay is who most car nuts would be if you had that kind of money.
Yeah, right. And no kids.
Right.
That's the other thing I add to Jay's
and
equation.
he gets to enjoy and play with the toy. Like Leno's Garage, I do episodes with him.
I saw you. You did the last thing I saw with you was the Euro motorcycle, the off-road.
Yeah.
What did you think of that bike? Because I drove it on Car Matchmaker, and it did not impress me. It seemed really slow.
A dealer who sold those, and he said there was a Euro club that met at his dealership every week. He said, described it perfectly. It's the most fun you can have at 45 miles an hour.
Right, exactly.
They're slow, they're clunky.
They're Russian-made.
They're fun at what they do. They're better now. Like the older ones, 5 years ago, they just fell apart as you were riding. Like things just fell off. And
now it's a Russian company.
Yeah,
and they make them or they bring them in through Portland, Oregon,
through Seattle, I think.
Through Seattle. And it doesn't it have a shaft that drives the wheel of the car as well?
Yeah, the sidecar ones, the ones we had, they're 2-wheel drive with no differential.
Right.
So when you engage the second wheel, you can't turn.
Yeah.
And you have to either pull in the clutch or pull it out of 2-wheel drive just to turn.
Right.
There's no differential. Those tires are turning at the same speed, and you'll just plow forward.
And it makes it very unwieldy, except when you're off-road, right? That's what you use that for.
I mean, that's what makes it fun, right? That's anytime you have something weird like that. Mm-hmm. Again, you don't want it to be your vehicle that you have to get to work on.
No,
but it's something to play with. It's something fun. It's like the 3-wheelers that are out now. The Polaris
things.
They're the same way. The Slingshot.
Yeah, the
Slingshot is a blast, but I would never want to have to go somewhere in it. But on
I feel
Sunday
bad
morning,
I've driven them and they are so much fun to drive, but you look so ridiculous in them.
Yeah, it's a toy.
It's a toy. My kids who are young, 9 and 7, really like the way it looks. But I always feel like, do you remember driving down the highway when you were a kid and you'd see like a guy on a trike, the Harley guy, there'd be a row of them, then there'd be one big fat guy on a trike, and you'd go, oh, that guy. Yeah. That's what I feel like the Polaris is nowadays. It's this oddity that is a lot of fun to drive, but you can never look good in it.
Some people I've seen have customized them, done a little stuff with them. But to me, that's one of those things.
Wheel.
This is one of those things that you rent, you don't buy.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
You
exactly.
You rent one and you blast around on it and they thank you and give it back.
It's the non-committal nature of the vehicle that I don't like. It's neither car nor motorcycle.
Right.
Like the person can't make up their mind.
But it's a lot of fun. Now the Can-Am Spyder, I don't know if you've ridden that.
I've seen that. You know who I saw on that thing was Lovitz. I'm pretty sure John Lovitz. Somebody gave him one.
Yeah,
and I saw him riding around on it.
That one isn't as much fun, but their market is people in cars who want to feel like they're riding a motorcycle, but this thing is safer because it's on 3 wheels. It won't tip over and blah blah blah. And the other person they get is the person who rides motorcycles but can't hold them up anymore because they're getting older or they had an injury, leg injury or something like that. But I think the Slingshot's more fun because the Slingshot has too much engine.
Mm-hmm.
The Polaris is like safe.
I'm drawn to these BMW R9Ts. That's the one that is on my home screen a lot, and I'm my cursor hovering over the buy it now button. To heaven. I drive right now. The only motorcycle I have is a '66 Triumph Bonneville that I've had for a long time, and I do that so that I'm not on the road a lot. My kids are still young, and if I go out, that's it. That's the end of them, right? No more cheeseburgers for them. But I love that bike. Do you drive old bikes like that?
I've never been a vintage guy, although I am in the process. And when I say I'm in the process of rebuilding, I mean my mechanics are rebuilding, and I'm paying for a CBX. We're doing a 1980 CBX, and we're converting it to a Street Fighter.
Wow.
Yeah. And because that was one of those that I always wanted one of those.
Yeah.
And I found online, and tell your listeners, just Google Hulk CBX. It was the ugliest motorcycle ever. This guy wanted to do the Hulk thing. The Hulk is like green and purple. This came out sort of a seafoam green and pink. It was just horrible. So I said I didn't buy it so much as I rescued it. And
so you're taking that apart and turning it into something new?
Completely to the frame, even cutting the frame because we're doing a single-sided swing arm on it. And just going to make this crazy Street Fighter out of it.
Wow! And then where will you ride that?
It'll be a Sunday afternoon bike and a show bike. Just something to take out Sunday afternoons. Take it to the rock store.
Right.
Go to the vintage rides in Venice, and just. But see, I've always loved the CBX. But bikes back then in the '80s, definitely in the '70s, and through the first half of the '80s, they were more engine than frame.
Right.
The frame and the tires couldn't handle the engine. So I always wanted to get a CBX and modernize it, put on the suspension from a modern bike and tires from a modern bike so that you can actually ride it. And that was the initial idea. And then my mechanics, who I love, were like, well, let's spend more of Alonzo's money and go all the way.
I've been obsessed with the CB750s. It's always Hondas for me because of that Honda dealership in my hometown. But I love those, the Sandcast CB750, and then all of that little 70s decade of Hondas are the ones that make me crazy.
The 750s, all the Cafe Racer guys.
Oh, they're cutting those up?
They've been digging those up and cutting them up. And the 750s are getting harder to find. They're still out there because there were so many of them.
What is a nice CB750 going to cost me?
Ooh, it totally depends on condition. Anywhere from $3,000 to over $10,000, depending on condition. Because it's probably the number one vintage bike. Because like your Triumph, right, the old British. bike, there just aren't that many of them around.
Right.
And the Hondas and the Hondas and it's probably principally Hondas and then some Kawasaki's from the 70s. Especially the old Kawasaki 2-strokes. Which were bombs, which were, it was a death trap to get on that thing. It was all engine and no brakes.
Right.
But those are the really popular ones, so the value of those is going up, especially if, it's like anything else, like finding one that hasn't been cut up or
right.
Somebody who didn't know what they were doing tried to make a Cafe Racer out of it.
Yeah, low mileage, original examples.
Yeah,
are always the best. Where do you hunt for stuff? Where do you find stuff?
I don't, online. Yeah, online. But again, I'm not a big vintage guy. my friend Mike Seat, who has that magazine Cafe Racer, like he was behind the whole thing. I don't know if you've ever had talked to Mike. He's always looking for stuff like that. Mike's always at those old vintage bike rallies, and he's one of those guys who can spend all day walking the aisles.
Right.
And then he sees the frame from a 1957 Featherbed Norton, and I got to have this. It's like, all right, Mike, I'm going to go buy a Multistrada.
Isn't it amazing how much stuff is still out there?
It's out there because
there's so much stuff. We had a guy that we were just hanging out with yesterday who had just uncovered this beautiful old 356 that here in L.A. that no one knew about. And there's so many beautiful old cars and motorcycles that are just in garages. And
I read a story, I think it was in Huntington Beach or somewhere in Southern California. A guy found the first Honda Civic.
No way.
Honda 600. They did an article. Automobile Magazine did an article about it. Serial number 1. Remember when it was a 600?
Yeah.
When it had a 600cc? He found it. Yeah, it was like in some storage thing, this and that. And he realized, like, this is the first one. And apparently there's a guy who restores those. And he got it to that guy. And then I think Honda has it now. I think Honda bought it back.
Yeah,
from
I'll
him
bet.
or
I'll
whatever.
bet they wanted that.
Yeah, they got. So there's all kind of stuff, and Leno told me about one he found. He found like I think it was a 71 911, and he said, it was under somebody's apartment or townhome, and it was one of those. The husband died, and the woman like pulled the cover off this old car that the husband kept downstairs, and it was a beautiful 71 911. And,
wow. That's the one he's hot rodding, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I know he's approaching it like a Leno approaches that.
Yeah, you never know what he's going to do.
No, I heard what he was going to. It's a T, and he's hot rodding it to like an RS, and that's cool. That's cool.
But there's stuff out there, and now the internet changed everything, right? Because now everybody who's looking can get in touch with each other, and that thing that sat around that was just junk, somebody wants to buy it. You just gotta, You just got to get the picture out there on the internet.
Well, it's always, I get asked all the time where to find old Porsche stuff and these old cars, and there's really no easy answer for that. It's this last car that I bought. It was just constant searching, dealer websites, the PCA Mart, which is the Porsche Club of America. If you're a member, you can search their stuff. But very rarely does that yield anything. You just start to get a sense of the market. You start talking to people, and something always pops up because of it. But you know what I mean? I'm eBay Motors straight on to the forums. I'm all over the place because you're not... More often than not, you're not buying the reputation of a dealer who's selling these cars. You're looking for that one example that someone has, and sometimes a bad guy has it.
Yeah.
And you just got to know what you're looking for.
A friend of mine, he said, man, you'd be safer surfing porn late at night. Because you're always surfing these car websites or bike websites, right?
Yeah.
Or just some random Craigslist thing. Or you're looking at one thing and then you click on something else, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh. But I think the advantage of doing that is you get more and more an idea of what's on the market and how much it costs. So when you see the right one or you see a good one, like this is what happened with this 996 I bought. Like I had just been looking and seeing various examples. And one thing I like, this Carfax thing, you find out how many owners the car had. So sometimes you see a car, car's 15 years old, blah, blah, blah. Then you find out it had 8 owners, and you're like, there's a reason for that.
Right.
So when I found this car, it's like it's on the 3rd owner and the mileage is low and it's a service history. Then you're like, yeah, this is a good one. Grab it.
Yep.
Because you're seeing what's out there in the market.
And if you can get a name, call that guy up who owned it. That guy, the 2 guys back, is not lying to you. He will tell you the truth about that car.
He remembers. He's like, oh, yeah, I remember that
one guy, if it's at a dealer, one guy back, he might lie.
Yeah.
But the guy before him is going to tell you the truth. So, anyway, we can catch up with you doing comedy. You said at Christmas here in L.A. I see your name on the sign all the time as I'm driving down
Laugh
Sunset.
Factory, Improv.
And then in New York. What, do you talk about politics in your act?
Oh, absolutely.
What's your act about?
I mean, I do topical stuff. So
yeah?
So I it's politics, it's social issues. I mean, I also do the relationship stuff and the life stuff because that's funny too. And you need a break. You can't pound politics, and it's the elephant in every room right now, right?
Yeah.
Like right now, like sexual harassment, right? Like sexual harassment I haven't been charged, and I feel somewhat lazy. I honestly
feel a little
like
left out.
At some point I should have stepped up my game, but no, you can't. So that's
you're just daring someone to call in.
That's
you
the kind of stuff
there's...
you talk about, because it's right here in society. Everyone's talking about it, And I said the other night, I said, man, we've taken a break from our summer racism to move into our fall of sexual abuse. Like we've lost our minds as a nation.
Well, it's
so
funny.
You just ride. That's what I talk about. I talk about what's going on.
Because with especially with politics, in fact, we keep going back to Jay Leno in this episode, but I heard Jay saying to Jerry at this premiere of his Netflix thing, it's nice to have a break from the politics.
Yeah.
Yet, I'm tuning into Bill Maher every Friday just to hear more of it, to laugh about it. Like, there are two ways to think about that. Like, I'll go into a Game of Thrones run to get away from it all, and then I'll want to just dive right into, I don't know, Rachel Maddow, Bill Maher,
Right.
and then the late night shows to laugh about it.
What's
right?
interesting right now is it's taken Stephen Colbert to the top.
Yeah.
Right? He's become the number one guy.
Yes.
And Fallon has fallen way behind him and Kimmel because Fallon doesn't touch it.
Yeah.
And
that's cyclical, though. That when I used to write for Letterman back in the day, that always happened. When there was a political news cycle, The Daily Show would get all the heat. And then when, politics has never dominated a news cycle like it's been dominating now.
Because we've never had a situation like this. And you can't pretend that Trump isn't happening.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't pretend it's not happening.
Right.
So you have to, on some level, acknowledge it. I tell people that's like, look, I'm not going to do the whole set on it, but you can't act like you haven't heard.
Right.
It's so, and I think, and it's interesting because talking about Letterman and Leno. Like Leno would hit on it, but Letterman's been saying, he says, like, if I was on air now, my whole show would be Trump. He was like, I'd be doing a full show on Trump every night. So
yeah, it's dominating the news cycle.
You have to find, as a comic, you find out how much works for you. I always say the fortunate thing for me is nobody comes into my show expecting me to be pro-Trump.
Right.
I have some friends who they're like that. Like it's a straight white male liberal.
Right.
But the audience comes in and they're thinking, oh, this guy's going to be, and then they're like, and it turns.
Yeah. Right.
It turns.
Right.
That happens when they hit the red states. But
it must be so hard if you're gonna, like, I always think if I got back to seriously thinking about doing stand-up. I did it on TV for a while and then tried it, but it was just like with kids, it was too hard to start putting an act together at 10 o'clock, right? I'm more focused on creating shows at this point. But I think when you say topical, and I'm a topical comedian, how much new stuff are you having to write every week?
It's constant.
As opposed to putting together an act that you're honing.
It's almost like there isn't time to hone stuff. It is rotating continuously.
So you're writing monologue jokes for yourself when you go out there every night.
Yeah, I mean, because there's always another name. There's always, you know what I mean? It's like
you need some Papadopoulos jokes.
Yeah, it's like, man, can you keep, like, okay, like last week, I was okay. I'll give you an example of how it changes. So I was doing this joke about Harvey Weinstein and Roger Ailes, right? And here's two guys who couldn't be more far apart, right? Hollywood liberal, elite, blah, 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 conservative, rich, Trump guy, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Only thing we can agree on? Let's grab the intern, right?
Right.
So then I just rewrote the joke and filled in Matt Lauer and Bill O'Reilly. Like, same thing. This is change the names.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but it's the same.
Right.
And so we have this, so you're talking about that.
And who is that? Who is it?
Michael Flynn just got, oh man, I got to start writing about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
right.
You're writing one joke while something, and it's not something small. It's not something you can ignore.
Right.
You can't keep working on the Matt Lauer, Louis C.K. joke while Flynn is being indicted. You're like, I got to acknowledge, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a constant thing. So, yeah, there isn't time for honing. You just jump in the well, make it funny, and then keep moving.
I love it. It sounds great, man. Well, I'm going to come see you. It sounds good. This is Alonzo Bodden. You can see him here in L.A. and at Gotham in New York over the holiday season. Thanks for coming on, man. It's very nice to meet you.
Thanks. Great meeting you, and a fun podcast. And this is one of those situations where we know a lot of the same people. We probably cross paths at the same thing, and I don't know each other.
No.
Did you make the LA Auto Show? Anything there?
I did stop in there. Porsche lured me down. Yeah, there were a lot of interesting things that were getting plugged into walls. Every car brand had something that was being plugged into a wall. Yeah.
Electric is where it's going. Some of them I'm cool with. Some of them I'm like, indifferent. But there's still some cool stuff out there. But they had this one display where it was like a fleet of Priuses, and I was like, oh, my nightmare. There's my hell. There's 12 Priuses coming at me all at once.
Alonzo Bodden, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next week on Spike's Car Radio. Real quick before we go, when you're looking to buy a car, you want to make sure that you're getting real pricing on actual inventory. Unfortunately, a lot of times this isn't the case. People configure cars online only later to find out they're not available. This just happened to my brother. Well, with TrueCar, you get real pricing on actual inventory. This is not pricing offered by TrueCar, but pricing from an actual dealer. And not just any dealer, but a TrueCar certified dealer. This is a carefully curated network of dealers committed to transparency and offering you a competitive market price. Using TrueCar, you can easily find the car you want. Next, TrueCar will show you what other people in your area paid for the same car you're looking for. Now you know what a fair price is, so you can feel confident. And don't we all want to feel confident? Over 3 million cars have been sold to TrueCar users by the TrueCar Certified Dealer Network. There are over 13,000 TrueCar certified dealers nationwide. You will work directly with a TrueCar certified dealer contact. TrueCar users are more likely to enjoy a fast buying process when they connect with TrueCar certified dealers. TrueCar users save an average of over $3,000 off MSRP. When you're ready to buy, visit TrueCar to enjoy a more confident car buying experience. Some features not available in all states. And guess what? I'm not telling you what features and what states.
Thanks for listening to Spike's Car Radio. Download new episodes every Wednesday on the Podcast One app or subscribe now at Apple Podcasts or PodcastOne.com.